guys, it's Kendra from Crafty Kendra, and today I'm going to show you what's what with your Stamp-a-ma-jig. So let's go ahead and get started. The stamp set I am going to be showing you today with this is the Plain and Simple stamp set from the Occasions Mini Catalog. So let's get started. First thing you need to know is when you get your Stamp-a-ma-jig, it's going to come in a box. And it's going to have your image sheet, and your image sheet is a thick piece of plastic, and the Stamp-a-ma-jig itself. Now, this plastic has a really smooth side, and then it has a side that has texture. The side that has texture is for your craft ink, because since craft ink is thicker than your dye-based ink, it tends to smudge more. This textured side grabs onto the ink to keep it from moving. And the smooth side you can use for your dye-based. The image sheet is washable, so you can take a baby wipe or you can just take it underneath your faucet and rinse it off. And how you use a Stamp-a-ma-jig, and I'm going to show you at this odd angle because that's the only way I can do it without getting a shadow, is you place your Stamp-a-ma-jig down on your work surface, take your imaging sheet, and you slide it into the crook of your Stamp-a-ma-jig. And then what you do is you take your stamp and you ink it up in some ink. And what you do is, at first, holding the image sheet still in the crook of the Stamp-a-ma-jig, you're going to put your stamp in the top of your crook of your Stamp-a-ma-jig and stamp straight down and pull straight up. Okay? So then you're going to get an image. And what happens because you use the Stamp-a-ma-jig is I can put this airplane anywhere on my paper and I know it's going to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pen and I'm going to draw a circle, and then I'm going to draw a smaller circle and say, I want my airplane to be in the big circle, but I want the propeller right there to be in that little circle. And I'm just doing this so that you guys can see that you can get it exactly where you want it. You're going to take your image sheet and place it so that you get your plane where you want it with your propeller. In this case, my propeller where the little circle is. Hold my image sheet there, bring my crook, my Stamp-a-ma-jig, and put the image sheet in the crook of the Stamp-a-ma-jig, remove the image sheet, ink up my stamp, stamp goes in the top of the crook, straight down, straight up, and there we go. My propeller is perfectly in that little circle. Of course you wouldn't draw the little circles and everything, but this is just to demonstrate for you that you can get it exactly where you want it. What I like to do with my stamp sets that are wood mount, and you guys see this a lot, is I'll have pieces of vellum. And these pieces of vellum will have the stamps already on them. I'm using vellum cardstock, which is thicker than vellum paper. And it's a lot thinner than your image sheet that comes with your Stamp-a-ma-jig, but it still works. What you would do is the exact same thing. You would take your Stamp-a-ma-jig and you would put your piece of vellum in the crook of your Stamp-a-ma-jig, ink up your stamp, put your stamp in the top of your Stamp-a-ma-jig, and press straight down and pull straight up. And now I have a permanent image sheet for this stamp. And the best thing about doing it like this is I can turn my vellum to a different corner, grab a different stamp, do the exact same thing in the top of the crook, straight down and straight up. And now it also has the happy birthday greeting on there, so I could put the happy birthday wherever I wanted as well. And you can continue doing this with every image in your stamp set. this is great for alphabet stamp sets so that you can get your words for your greetings on your scrapbook pages or your cards in the right place every time. Okay? And then all you would do is just continue turning your page or your piece of vellum to get your images where you want. Now, because this is a dye-based ink and we're stamping it on cardstock, it is going to be a little wet. So if you haven't done it before or you're new, I would hold off on turning it and stamping the next one until the first one's had time to dry. Okay? So then I have one piece of vellum cardstock here, and it has 4 images on it. And it will always have these 4 images, and it will always work unless for some unknown reason your stamp falls off of your wood block. If that happens, what you would need to do is you would need to make a new vellum sheet. And that's because how can you expect a stamp that's no longer in the same position on your wood block to match up on the vellum? Because all this is doing is I could cut a piece of vellum that is the exact same size as my block, and this airplane would be in the exact same place it is on my rubber stamp. Okay? And you would just continue, and I have another piece here. You would just continue putting your vellum or your image sheet into the crook. And when I mean into the crook, you'll see on the bottom of your Stamp-a-ma-jig that you have foam. It's very, very thin, but this is so that you can press it onto the paper. And what you do is you press your Stamp-a-ma-jig down and slide the paper in, and it gets stopped on your Stamp-a-ma-jig. Your Stamp-a-ma-jig shouldn't be on your paper. It should remove freely. So, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp another image. Okay. Another tip to make sure that your Stamp-a-ma-jig and image sheets always work is to make sure you're always stamping the stamp in the same direction. And what I mean by that is on Stampin' Up stamps, you'll see that they have Stampin' Up written at the bottom of the stamp, and it is on all of them to mark which end is the bottom of the stamp. How I use my Stamp-a-ma-jig is I always use it with the Stampin' Up logo at the bottom. So that way I always know when I go to use this that when I lay it down, I need to lay it down on my paper with this being the bottom. So when I come in to stamp, remove this and put my image down, I'm stamping it with my logo towards the bottom. Okay? And of course, with images, and it's harder, sometimes people will put it backwards. Just because you put this backwards doesn't mean you're going to stamp your image backwards. It actually means that it will be really messed up, so try not to do that. You can always mark on your paper with a pen and write front across it, or this side up. That way you know. But what I like to do is I'll just stamp words on there if there's words in the set, because you're always going to know you have it the right way up if you have your words showing and your letters are going the correct direction. So we'll stamp one more. Again, you're going to take our piece of vellum, bring our Stamp-a-ma-jig so that the vellum is in the crook. stamp at the top of the crook and straight down. And there we go. And just one more time for good measure, I'll bring in my image sheet since I've already made all of my permanent ones. We'll fold the paper over so that we have a clean side so you guys can see. So here's my image sheet. You can see the little edges of it. I'm going to take it with our Stamp-a-ma-jig, bring our Stamp-a-ma-jig to it, ink up our stamp. Stamp goes in the top of the crook, straight down and straight up. Going to remove the Stamp-a-ma-jig, and then you have a clean image. And then what we're going to do is bring in, we'll go ahead and draw another circle on the paper. I want my metal clasp to be right here, and by metal clasp I mean the little locking mechanism right here that attaches the compass to the loop. So I'm going to take my image, pull it up so that that little clasp is in the circle. Bring my Stamp-a-ma-jig to my paper again, get it lined up in the crook so that it's in the crook, not on it, and it will remove freely. If it tugs a little, that means you're going to need to reposition it because your Stamp-a-ma-jig is on your paper. Ink up your stamp. Stamp goes in the top of the crook. That is very important. You stamp straight down, pull straight up, and there we go. I got my clasp in the little circle. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that I've answered all your questions about the Stamp-a-ma-jig, and if you have any more, be sure to let me know. Thanks. Bye.